This was a project. Tell us about. It's a townhouse in Greenwich Village. Tell us about what your research told you about the history of the place, and tell us about the client and the story that you crafted.
So it's Federal and Georgian, this townhouse, and it's an incredible block where it just feels like a period piece. And our client is we've done 4 houses for her, and this was her New York. She's a thespian and a theater producer, and so we really looked at all the incredible grand dames that lived in, the West Village and collected art, supported patrons, and like how can we have this folly and this magical place that's going to function as her production company in New York, that would really be inspiring for her entire production to create in. And each floor sort of addresses different phases and different times of production, really.
So tie this back into our discussion about design as cosmography, and of all the words that you use to describe your practice, your firm, like I said, the words are always the same, always the same. I mean, and that's just, that's language. Perhaps we need more words, but I like the word couture as being evocative of something. How would that apply to what we're looking at now?
To this one, so we had that mural hand painted, and so we really looked at the turn of the century and Belle Epoque, and then also wanted to support modern, craftspeople in New York doing their thing. So this is really, this mural is incredible. It looks Baroque from afar, and then you get in on it, and it's very sort of fucked up, and it's kind of just off a little bit when you go closer in on it. So you think it's really traditional, but there's all this secret messaging and things that draw you in when you're sitting in the room. Does that answer the question? I feel like...
Well, yeah, because the mural is obviously the big statement in this room, and it's, having seen it, it's incredible. Again, hard to tell from the image, but it takes, classical landscape painting and also classical Zubair type wall coverings, and then the figures are all, they look like a Cecily Brown painting, very sort of abstract and weird, and it sets a mood. It definitely sets the tone. And this is another room from the same house. Tell us a little bit about what's happening.
Our client wanted a seance room, and it's right off of
a seance.
Right off of the other room, and it's painted like dark lacquer, and it's actually their TV room, but also this is the late night hangout, and everyone just gravitates to this room really at all hours of the day. It's at the end of the parlor, and it's a draw for people for sure.
So it has, I think, a witchy quality, and is that built in?
That is.
Tell me about the working with this client, because it seemed to be a pretty successful, having met her and her own witchiness.
Yes.
What makes the most successful collaborations, and how do you know going into a project?
I think I'm really open to her ideas, and she's really open to mine, and so I'm not gonna. If she wants a seance room, I'm game. I'm just how do we make it chic? How do we make it happen? How do we make it extra witchy? How do we, Bugatti would be great in there. This would be so. I think it's I feel really blessed with her. We're open to each other's ideas, and she's able to have fun with her properties, and each one has a really different character. And this was really the second floor we call the Goddess Suite. She really wanted it to be super feminine, and really for her and her female friends. And it's funny, her husband comes and he just loves that floor, and he's always there. That's where he's most comfortable. But
is there, given the intimacy of the relationship between designer and client, you have to get into everything.
Yeah.
I mean, in the olden days, I mean, I don't want to be too salty, but, you know, I had a whole book of like, this one client had the Library of Congress of gay pornography in these like shelves, these beautiful walnut shelves with ormolu mounts that came out. This was back in the VHS days. All of which is to say, it's a very intimate relationship. And so how do you navigate, like, you know, being in these, is that something that comes up as, you know, tricky, that relationship?
And I don't know if you all have this, but clients seem more and more guarded recently. I feel like people are really careful lately, but I think it takes a few projects, and then, you know, I'm there to support their lives, and the more they share with me about where they're at with their life and what usually it's at a big transition, and the more you can connect to that point in their lives, the more successful the relationship can be. And it's really about them and where they're at and what they want this particular moment in time. Like, usually you buy a house when you become an empty nester, or you have more kids, or you've gotten married, or whatever. You know, it's like there are these really important moments, and I just really try to focus on how to support that. I always say life first. So it's like, and I've gotten really fearless about embracing whoever I'm with. Yeah, I think in the long run, it's my job to make it beautiful and soothing and calming and aesthetically pleasing to them, but like, I should be able to do that and address where they're at and make them happy. Like, that should be a given, you know?
And, well, I guess some of it feels like you're put together for this intense period of time, like you're putting on a play or a movie, and so you're family for a moment, and then
you're not.
And then you're not.
I know. Because there's only so many birthday parties you can go to. But I see the kids grow up, and I'm like, you know, I love it that I was there for that period, and it's hard to let go sometimes.
And speaking of hard to let go, when you do a project and you and your staff, you've poured all of this time into like making something really great. And like the clients have barely moved in, and they're like, oh, you know what, we like it better in you know, in London or in Paris or.
This just happened.
Like, do you feel that as a personal loss?
Yes, like we just finished 2 houses in Lisbon, and they were like, I think spent a month in them, and they're like, we really want to be in London, and we're leaving, and we're all moving, the kids, everybody, blah, blah, blah. And it was like these 2 business partners, and it's hard because when you do these rooms, we can go to, like, you imagine someone making a sandwich in their kitchen and having, you know, rehearsal, or like their kids being there. And so it's so hard when there isn't a life lived in there. For me, it's about creating the stage for things to unfold. So. Okay.
Well, at least there are more fees in the transition.
That's true. I should be happy, but
like there's only so much custom work. That's the other, you know, couture aspect. You don't want to just pick up something from a Portugal house and put it in London. There's only so much of that. Let's talk about this Michigan shower.
Oh yeah, this was the goddess suite that we were just talking about, and Mayor has a great portrait in this shower that I love. And there's there's a full mural in plaster above. Our client is in it, and she's sort of like a goddess of theater, and there's music, you know, musical instruments and astrological things, and it's a wonderful. Everything is painted this, you know, custom sort of blush color, and the light is incredible. And we took a big amount of space. It's my favorite bathroom because you can make a drink in it, you can entertain friends, you can get your makeup done, you can take a bath, you can take a shower in the stall. And,
ice cream social.
There's ice cream. Yeah, it's very social. It's another place where there's a lot of people.
Okay, well, this is another house.
Truesdale.
Tell us a little bit about like what's kicking here.
This house looked like a nightclub when they got it. There was like lots of rope lights and blah blah. It had lost all of its Truesdale history, and it was amazing, like fashion couple, and they wanted something really serene and slightly tied to the Truesdale in the 60s, but really sort of calm and stately. And this would have been easier as a ground up. We really had to rebuild this house. And it's really got...
And was there a reason that they didn't want it to, did it have historical significance or?
It didn't really, and everything was sort of reclaimed, everything was plastic and reclaimed wood. I'm so careful about waste and not doing things, but there was nothing that wasn't off-gassing there. So I just was like, let's take it out and let's just start over and it will be better. And we focused on, it's actually, you can't tell, but it's a very well-lit, beautifully lit house that Shona Connor worked on with us. And again, all the plaster diffuses the light, all the shears have a slight tint to them, and every surface is pretty organic, yeah.
Oh wait, this is a whole other thing.
We were here this morning, yeah.
This is an A. Quincy Jones house. Tell us about this property because it brings up a lot of questions about preservation, restoration, imaginative.
Yeah.
You know, tell us about this project.
Taking liberties. We were there this morning. I think this is the 1968 Quincy, the Smalley house by Quincy Jones, and very important house to him, probably his favorite, he would say his favorite house. And it was a restoration, but also we had this client, we met and we're really, I adore her, we're really, we were both sort of stewards of historic houses having a hard time taking ownership, and
because you had a Schindler at that point.
Schindler house that's in this slideshow also, and so we just, for me, it was like, of course I'm going to restore this Quincy Jones. Of course I'm going to honor it and bring it back to what it was, but also we need to do some serious space planning and move things around and really make her feel comfortable in a pretty large house, whether her kids were there or not, whether, you know, like by herself. And so we have, spatially it's interesting because we reorganized for public living, work and wellness together, and then what I call the apartment is where all, like there's a new kitchen and bedrooms and things. And I was terrified because we took out of, you know, the kitchen of the house and put in a circular kitchen, but really we were trying to fold in femininity and layer in colors and make things softer. She was having a very hard time being there.
Didn't you tell me that you found a possible historical reference in the Jones archive to a circular space, or did you just make that up for the story?
No,
to pretend that you weren't?
No, I did. When we went into the archives, we do so much research at the studio, and I think it's crazy how much research we do, but what we found several of the rejected plans for the house. And so the same day, like my head of architecture and me both I came with a circular kitchen, you know, just thinking about the way, like traffic flow basically, and he found a version of this area that had a circular layout in the pad. It wasn't the kitchen, but we were like, he would have approved, so let's do it. So, and I was terrified, but we did it.
Does that same tree still survive?
It has survived. I'm really happy to say a lot of like this space we had to put in, you know, irrigation, skylights, like we kind of had to take everything apart to put it back together and restore all the indoor-outdoor details. And we were just there. They were happy, the trees today.
Good.
2 years down the road.
Oh yeah, that's...
Yeah, there they are, the fiddle leaves. And Quincy Jones, you know, I noticed there's sort of a severity to the house, and I think even in his cross sections and elevations, he'd always have an organic line sketched in, whether it was the plant or the rug pattern or the stone floor. Like it was just, so we made sure like everything we brought in had sort of circular or sinuous patterns. Yeah.
And is the pebble inlay, is that Jones or Garrett Ekbo?
Oh, you know, it could have been Garrett Ekbo because Garrett Ekbo had done all the atriums originally, but they do flow from outside in, and I don't know which one.
Interesting.
Jones did have them in his drawings, but it could have been Ekbo's idea. Yeah.
Okay.
Here's the circular kitchen. So it's really, It was very difficult. It was a feat, but it's
And how's the engineering on that holding up?
it's holding up. Everything is curved. The boxes are straight, and then all the doors are curved, and the lighting is amazing.
Oh.
And it completely changed the way you move through the space. The photos taken from the way you enter from the dining room, and the other end is sort of what I call the apartment suite. It's very livable and manageable scale-wise.
How do you, when you think about your own work, how do you evaluate, like, success? How do you evaluate, or, like, what sort of hallmarks? Like, did it move the design needle? Is that not even a consideration in your head?
Yeah.
Like, did it match what you had hoped to? How do you assess, you know, the...
I mean, I'm always like, did we listen to the building and do exactly what we should have to honor it, you know? And then, is it fresh? Like, does it look like our clients, or does it look like a trend that's out there right now? Like, right now there's a full ban at the office on Swedish because, you know, but there's just, like, it's so easy. We're all looking at so many images, and it's so easy. I'm always like, is it original? Is it different? Is it speaking to the client, the sense of place, the building, you know?
So you mentioned, like, there's a ban on Swedish in the office. Let's talk about social media and like the, you know, possibilities and the huge pitfalls.
I know. I mean, brass and Swedish, right? Like, you know, everyone who is on First Dips for 5 minutes, that they're going to show me the same 3 lights, you know? And I know they haven't thought about, I send it back and I'm like, what does this have to do? You know, there's one, you know, what does this have to do with the Chateau Marmont in 1921? Or what does this have to do with Quincy Jones in 1961, or our client, or this? And if there isn't a connection, I reject it. Because we only have so many levers to pull and ways to communicate. So, yeah. I also just follow trends and make sure. I had a great mentor who was always like, just do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. I was doing, and I still try to just do the exact
And that, I mean, but that must be also not so easy in the age of, like, scroll swipes, look,
and it's not so
like,
easy
to, you know,
for business.
so then you, like, get into this game where you're trying to, you know, outrun whatever.
Or put yourself in a tunnel and stay with your
or
books
put yourself
and your
in a tunnel.
And,
I mean, where do you look to, like, when you need, you know, like, wipe the slate, I need a refresh, I want to see something interesting? Is it travel? Where do you where do the creative juices?
This, like, books and research and travel. I travel so much. And then I love doing historic house tours. Like, I'm obsessed with how people lived in the past. So I love seeing, like, how the closet was or the kitchen was or whatever, because it reminds you of what you're missing or you've lost right now, and you can sort of layer that in with the present at the same time.
And do you have any recs for house tours? That I know you just did YSL, but you know, every queen's got that one on the list. Are there any more obscure house tours that you would recommend?
I mean, oh gosh, I've been to every obscure one in California. There was a really dorky program about what was the passport to history, and I made the kids go to every single one. We got every stamp, and we got a free meal. But I feel like they really learned about California history. I loved the really crazy early buildings, the adobes and the missions and all of that stuff in California. I think it's always right there. It doesn't matter if you're in Marrakesh or you're, you know, here. I just seek out the weird preservation societies and find them. I try to add one to every trip. And I get a lot of eye rolls, but people come,
of, like, not another house tour? Yeah. And so this is a whole different idea. We're in Ojai.
1908 Ojai. Myron Hunt was the architect, and it's just like early California. It was a hunting lodge early on, and they really loved their time in Ojai. It was Mr. Libby's estate, which was the founder of Ojai, and this is it's actually my brother's house, and it's very beloved, like family compound. Lots of happy times here. And this was the main living room. I think when they bought the house, again, it was in a weird historic preservation magazine, and I made them go see it. But it was done so strictly in arts and crafts, and they really couldn't connect to it, and were like, didn't want to connect to it, and so we sort of went a little bit older, but it's gathered and eclectic. I think the building, there's a lot of work we did to this, and you can't tell. It all looks like it's been there, and we were very careful with that because it is such an important building. But yeah, I'm very happy and proud that it's bulletproof and gathered and casual and not fussy. I think
bulletproof?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like that rug's been there for 15 years now, and there's nothing's happened to it. And everyone's in bathing suits and ice cream cones and oil and everything, and it's been fine. This is my old Schindler.
Yeah, I remember your old Schindler.
Lots of parties here. Yeah, and this was another one where it was just, my kids would talk about, like, it feels like Schindler lives with us. It's like he's a ghost in the house. Like, you have to stop talking about Schindler, what he would. It was funny. It took me a while to be like, you know what? We're living in here, and they're going to skateboard down the hallway if they need to, and life first. Like, we're preserving the building. We got it. This was destroyed, and we got it back to what it was. Luckily, a lot of the plywood and stainless and everything was right under marble and under terracotta tiles, and there was a bar in every room. But we loved it as our tree house, and we were able to honor the past and live in the present at the same time. And I learned a lot about low materials. This is like a construction grade plywood house, and like high thoughtful design. Yeah, there's just, like, Schindler's incredible in that way.
Wrestling with a dead architect is one thing. What about wrestling with a live
gosh, I've had those
architects?
Too.
Like,
yeah.
Obviously you have sometimes the division of labor is hard.
Obscure.
Like, what makes, what are the pitfalls there?
That is a good one.
And
Which
architect is the meanest?
I mean,
just go ahead.
Oh my God, it's like Starchitects and dead Starchitects. I think a lot of times we're brought in late to make sure that the client is heard and make sure that the house is livable in many ways, and so a lot of times we're doing this right now. You're acting as a bridge between this big idea and then living in it, really. And it's sort of, it's very hard to like manage all the egos and set things aside and just get decisions made and make sure everyone thinks it's their idea.
That's
There's
the key.
There's an art to that, yeah.
I'm sure there is an art and an art to that. Okay.
Okay, I love this. This is my good dear friend Irene Neuwirth. It's a store on the Upper East Side for her, and she is a walking sense of folly and in love with animals, and we've always had a lot of fun together. And that is a giraffe in the window. All the kids come to the window. They give them, the dogs walk by, and everybody visits it. And our friend Claire Crespo made that. We looked at it, it's lined up with the Alice in Wonderland sculptures, and if you draw a line from Central Park across, it's there. So we just made it really like, we wanted it to be like a fun, almost acid trip. Yeah, and then we wanted to bring California in, so we called Chris Walston, and he did this incredible palm tree in the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is the sort of architectural form, the glazing, all of that, is that like referencing?
Yeah, so there was a store in there. There was an incredible build out in there for the LVMH company, and it was just a beautiful, there was that whole skeleton sort of bird cage was there. There was so much high-end work done, and I really wanted to not be wasteful and not take it all down for no reason. And everyone's like, we're not going to get our identity, and we need to like start over. And I was like, no, 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 we're going to take a $2 million renovation and look like an $8 million. That's what we're going to do. And that's what we did. And it was like we fit everything into the frames. It was painstaking, and we really focused on lighting again, because jewelry is very difficult to light, like 5 points for every diamond. So, and then again, it was again supporting artisans and people making things. There's incredible dioramas in here, and ended up being an Academy Award-winning production designer in the end that did them for us. But we caught her early, and it was really nice.
What'd she win her Academy Award for?
You're gonna kill me. Who got the last Academy Award for? Oh my God.
You're looking at me.
Not this year, but last year.
No,
not
like
Honora
before. You mean the one where like
oh my God, why am
the
James?
Emma Stone is
Yes,
like a rag doll
yes.
and
What is it?
or something.
What? Yes, Four
Thank
Little
you,
Things. Thank you.
Four Little Things.
yes.
Interesting.
I love supporting people making things with what we do. We can, you know.
Well,
I'm
back to
fortunate
the
enough to be able to
subject
do
of
that.
like reusing this architectural frame and waste. What do you do when a client says, you know,
Is wasteful.
well, like I need 40,000 square feet for my, you know, Pilates studio, my aviary, my, you know, gift wrapping room.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, or when a client comes to you with a house that's obviously bloated and
Yeah.
like,
I am, you know, it's rare that I take those on, but I'm a big proponent of human scale. And I think that's something studying historical architecture gives you. I immediately break things down so that people can sit and talk and feel warm by a fire and have food together, and you know, it's pretty close. You can have a conversation. I think at the end of the day, it's there to support human connection and community. So everything's a house to me, whether it's a store or a hotel or, you know, a bedroom.
well,
So I just break down the scale until it makes sense.
on the subject of human connection, I hope I die before I have to like deal with whatever AI is going to bring me, except for like,
Oh
you
my
know,
God.
whatever.
Okay.
They can like 3D print a new head of hair for me in my dotage.
I'm excited.
You've actually, like, I haven't met, I'm sure ChatGPT could write a Mayor Russ article, one from column A,
Yes.
one from column B, like, Airy,
Yes.
Hamptons, just put
Yes.
it all together. What is your experience in the AI world been?
So I know it causes a lot of fear, but I tend to go right into the middle when something's fearful. But I try to use ChatGPT every day, and I was really happy to I got to sit in an AI circle of people. They put in basically a photograph and said, design this room in the style of Studio Shamshiri, Napa House. And like in 9 minutes, it came out, you know, and then you could just be like, you know, try it as if it was this movie or with this person as the director or in the style of this. And I was shocked. It was pretty good. It was the store-bought version of what we would do and not bespoke. And so, but I was shocked, like actually.
Conceptually or actually, like instead of the built-in sofa that you would have done, there's something they grabbed one from a catalog and put it there?
Yeah. So a lot of it was right, but the nuance and the couture thing will never get in there, you know, and all the details. And actually after
never say never.
I mean, well, maybe not in this short term, except like I was just like, we don't have a set formula, we have a set process. So I felt very safe with that. Yes, they could copy something we've already done, but they can't come up with, you know, it can't come up with something that's of our ethos yet, probably. But it did pump out, like I said, like a store-bought version, like a very accessible one. It made me want to push more couture and more custom. And I felt like that would be the safer place for us.
And what did you say? You sat in an AI circle? That even
Yes.
terrifies me.
I know.
What does that mean?
It was like a
What does that
room. I
mean?
mean, a friend of mine set it up, but it was a room of 4 or 5 AI experts. And
You're physically in the room,
I
or
was
you?
in the room with them, and it was a casual setting, but it was sort of like, watch out, like your job is going to be, like they're going to be able to do this. You know, you'll be able to get a rendering in 9 minutes, and you'll see. And I could tell the difference. Not everyone could tell the difference, but it was shockingly good.
Okay.
And I'll say it's all about the entry. So immediately I go back to the studio. I'm like, we got to do our renderings this way, but they don't. It's not there yet.
If we do enough of these, they can just hologram us.
I know.
And like put a quarter in the slot and get going.
Oh, this is the Maison de la Luce in New Orleans. I wanted it to feel like you were underwater a bit. This is the breakfast room, so it was like kind of in the clouds, but if you look closely in the wallpaper, there's like bugs and swamp plants and things. And
because New Orleans is so swampy.
Yeah.
Is it meant to be a little Delfty?
It is a little Delfty. I love the traditional breakfast idea there. And, we had a real strong narrative for this. That was like, basically it was a guest house that got opened up. Yeah, this woman that traveled the world came back. And
that person who traveled the world.
Yeah.
What would any show house be without that person?
Yeah.
Any decorator showcase.
And this is our snake handle. I was like, at the time there was just a lot of rebirth imagery, and like there was a lot of light and dark, and we called it Maison de la Luce because of that. And I just thought it'd be really great, like when you take all your clothes, you're about to take a shower, you have to put your hand on the snake and go in there, and sort of that vulnerability, those moments that make you pause and think. This is the inner sanctum. It's sort of this private little bar, and you can open that little painting on the left and order a cheeseburger through it if you want. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's those little, like, getting back to the original idea of layering fun, surprise, delight, meaning into these spaces.
You gotta enjoy. I don't know if you can see my baby octopus is up there.
Wait, where's your baby octopus?
On the ceiling.
Oh, is that a real baby octopus?
No, it's all stencils, and we just borrowed from Italian Futurism. And this is another house by Myron Hunt in Ojai. And this was also, it was a music teacher's house, and our clients were thespians again, and they really wanted something. They had a narrative that they brought to us. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, what if Wes Anderson bought a Swiss chalet in Ojai and Yves Saint Laurent was coming to visit? Like, what would that look like? So I was like,
see, that sounds like
fed it to me. I'm going to do it.
That sounds like an AI prompt.
Yeah, I know.
That sounds like all those stories.
But they were so happy.
Yes, that's the example Richard uses when he's like, I hate narratives in design.
That one did not come from me, so it was so specific.
And I love when you say thespians.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Actor.
We know what you mean, Pam Shamshiri.
Okay.
You can't fool us.
She doesn't. Anne Hathaway's house. It's public. This is the kitchen.
Was she the meanest client you've ever had? No, I'm kidding.
She's so nice.
I'm kidding.
Nice.
That's the kitchen from the same house. Mm-hmm. Can't go wrong with a pale blue aga.
No.
Oh, wait, look. Time, space, and storytelling. This used to be called cosmography versus chronology. But then again, the portrait on the poster, like my headshot is like 25 years old. It's like 3 dogs ago. Enough of me nattering on. I'd love to open the floor to questions for Pam. Okay, here comes the scan.
Hi.
Here comes the, oh wait, is there one, do I see one? There's a, please.
Hi, good. How are you? Thank you.
You talked a little bit about storytelling with your clients, but some clients, like you mentioned, do close off. How do you approach them opening up?
Oh my God, that's such a good question because sometimes they, yeah. I just really tried to listen and stand by and wait for that door to crack. And sometimes, most of the time it cracks, and you get, you have an in, but it's very rare. But sometimes it doesn't, and I think that I feel like people are just more guarded and careful now with their information. Maybe it's because it's so accessible to everyone. Sometimes you have to accept defeat, I'm saying that today, but normally I wouldn't say that, but I had a tough morning.
I mean, can you expound on that? People are a little more guarded today, like place that in the context of cultural upheaval, of where's it all going, what's it all happening?
I mean,
like,
it's so
what are your
know,
conversations with your clients
it's so helpful
these days?
to know, like, there's times where we don't know who's going to be living in the house and what this house is for them and what they want to do here and blah, blah, blah. So you really can't, like, serve it up to them. You know what I mean? And so I'm always like, if you could tell me what the art would be, or you could tell me what the room would be about, this could be so much better. But yeah, I never had that before, but it feels like more and more recently people have had their privacy, so taken away. I mean, there's nothing private anymore, so they're just more guarded.
And what about billionaire bunkers?
Billionaire bunkers are a big thing. I'm doing a billionaire bunker.
You are?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure you're NDA'd up the kazoo, but if it's for Peter Thiel, we're going to have to talk
but I
after.
know there's battery rooms and desalinization and water and da-da-da. So like there's a lot of that going on. I actually think I'm trying to just be like, actually this is practical and maybe not, does not have to be, you know what I mean? Maybe this is good to be able to be off-grid and survive if you need. And I'm just embracing.
No, I'm sure it's good.
Learning about it. And then I think
I'm sure we can all agree on that.
How do we bring it to everyone? You know what I mean? I'm just trying to use it as a learning thing. Yeah. It's a type of commune of its own.
I see a hand. Yes.
I think we all are such huge fans of your work. So beautiful.
Thank you so much.
And I love hearing you talk about your process. Like, can you speak a little bit more to that? I know you talk a lot about research. Like, how much time do you give? Do you have, like, this is the goal, to have, like, one sentence that's your design direction? Like, can you speak a little bit more to that?
Yeah. James, our studio director, is here. We have a concept phase, and we actually devote a good, it's 6 weeks normally, but we put as many hours and time into it as possible before we're under the stress of being on an hourly, And I think I put way too much time into it to answer that. It doesn't make sense. But I encourage everyone to go to libraries and archives and not look at things that are online and dig out their books. And I'm a little bit of a dinosaur in that way. But and then after that, I think I hang on to it tight. I call it the dream big phase. Like, don't worry about the budget. Don't worry about the schedule. Let's show them everything possible. And then we'll figure out what we're really going to do. And then we go into DG, which I call the library phase. It's just like and then CA and construction and stuff. But sometimes we don't share our internal narrative with the clients. I mean, and because they don't want to know, but they're just happy they're getting fun, inventive work, And sometimes they want to know. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, look, the hands. Yay. Please.
Hi, yes. First of all, your process is fascinating. It's really wonderful
Thank you.
to listen about it. I was curious, do you make suggestions for the artwork? And if so, what are the
It's a good question.
that you use? Like, how do you find, like, are you looking for new, fresh artists?
Yeah.
Or do you have, like, a stable of artists that you use? How does that process?
So So actually over COVID, there's been some incredible art collections that we've been lucky enough to work with, these incredible collections and consultants. And when the client comes with their art, we build around it. I've learned to start with the art. We were part of a Johnson Mark Lee building where they built the building around the art that was going to be in there. And I think that process was so eye-opening, just the power of it and how much you have to allow space for it and quiet everything else out down to like receive that information. And and then more recently, having gone through that and been around that level of art, we're starting to place art. Sometimes we just imagine a room and we need, something. We just need something to anchor it, and it can be the art, it can be the rug, it can be, it just depends. So more recently, we're starting to place art, and I'm enjoying it. And
you refer to the consultants you say like, oh, I want something like kind of with a style or a color.
Yeah, and there's some projects we work with consultants, and then some projects we have a lot of fine art people in our studio, so we can draw from within. So it's just case by case.
We'll go pink and then dark.
This is super specific, but in the thespian project #1, you're the West Village.
Yes, yes.
Tell me about that piano, because I've never been super drawn to the overall like piano aesthetic, and I just thought that was the most remarkable thing.
Oh, isn't it beautiful? Oh gosh, I should know the name from our studio. It actually came from a composer's house, and it was, but it is from, I think that is a Swedish piece, and I should know the exact name, but it's so beautiful. It came like that, and it came from a famous composer's house, and my client was so excited about it and ended up getting it. But I don't know, I'm sorry that I don't know the details, but it is a very significant piece.
And it's 50s.
I should know.
Is it 50s, 60s?
40s.
40s.
Yeah, I think
Oh,
it was
that makes it even
was like
more
1946.
extraordinary. And
I was in love with the color.
oh,
too.
that's the original.
That's the original color. We didn't touch it. It was just like that.
Nice. Please.
Hi again. Yeah.
And thanks, Meyer. I was wondering, what was the last place that you traveled to, and what inspired you there?
Oh my God, that's a good question.
That was on my sheet, right?
That was on your sheet.
That was on my
for you.
sheet. Yeah. You have to pay extra for added content after the
I'm so lucky. I just took a nice little break. I went to a cooking class in Morocco with like, it was a lot of street food and then cooking the old way. So we, with 4 girlfriends, and we did essaouira, we did fish and baking, and then we did tangia and tangias in Marrakesh, and then had a whole lamb day in the Atlas Mountains. It was amazing. I was literally like digging ashes out of underneath a hammam and putting my clay pot in there to cook, and it was so fun because I felt like we were, again, time traveling and learning about, each family, like you learn that everyone has their family dough, and then they take it to like the baker, the local baker, and they bake it in there, and then when you pick up your kids at the end of the school, you get the bread and take it home, and it was just really fun and amazing to like sort of dip into an old way of life. And then I went straight from there to Milan for Salone, which this year was incredible and theatrical, and I had the most amazing experience there. I'd never been, actually. And then I went to Rome to see my mom and then came home. So it was very inspiring and very different. I had to pack 2 different suitcases,
Like a mirrored baseboard, what was it?
Oh, yes, I saw Vincenzo De Cotis' apartment there, and I always thought in Milan.
Oh, it's in Milan.
Yeah,
that thing?
his place in Milan, and there's like a mirrored. I always thought it was a mirrored baseboard, and I found out that that's the heat and air conditioning, and it's chromed, and it runs around. I've actually tried to copy it and be like, we just need a 17-inch little blah blah blah, but I love that it was functional because he's in a palazzo and he made something so functional and celebrated it. Yeah. I love that that's what it was doing. Yeah.
Okay, one more question. Oh, oh, there it is. You get the final question.
I'd like to thank you for being so generous with your thought process. I am a color scientist, and so my question is, at what point
Did
in
you
your
say you're a scientist?
color
Oh, color.
scientist, at what point in your process do you start to consider color?
Right away. I feel like it's the biggest, most emotional lever we can pull, and you can set the tone with color so easily, and it's such a big bang for your buck. You know, I think it's such a powerful lever, and these days, like the studio is so strong. They bring a lot of the references to our concept meetings, but I will always bring a painting or something where I'm really attracted to the palette, and it's usually an emotional response. You know.
Are there
Thank you.
painters that you turn to regularly for
No,
palette?
really, it's very random.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. I once heard if you want color, look to Matisse and Hockney.
Oh, I do look at Hockney a lot.
Somebody once told me that. I forget who exactly. I'm going to wrap this baby up because my meter is running out. And,
Thank you, Mayor.
West Hollywood,
I love doing this.
they'll
Thank
get
you,
you.
Mayor.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you
for
all for
coming. We
coming.
appreciate it.